I love, I mean, we've already talked about stack ranking and we've talked about cluster analysis. Are there other ways that we should be utilizing the data? Because I think that there's a lot of owners out there that have access to this data, whether it's through having a card system, or maybe they just keep track of things like turns per day, or, just whatever information that they're keeping track of. How do we use it? I think that's where maybe a lot of owners might get tripped up a little bit. If they have the data, they don't really know, how do I use it to make better decisions? And I think the cluster analysis and the stack ranking are definitely, ways to utilize it. Are there other things that we should be doing with this data?
Yeah. And I mean, cluster analysis may be a little down the road for a lot of people, but I think some of the more immediate things you can do, or there are a lot of more immediate things you can do with the data. Now, I mean, the first things first, I mean, is creating data sets that are, viable, I suppose, and that you're able to use. I did some volunteering for a local jazz non-for-profit here in town. And so they provided me with a big data set that they'd been using to track all their musician pay and this stuff. And we were trying to create some models to understand, expect, ticket sales for each day and things like that, or predict ticket sales. And, I started going through the data, and it's just, they're using different date formats, every, here and there. Like sometimes they're including the year, sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're writing out the word 3. Sometimes they're saying 3, putting the number 3. Sometimes it's 3 dash or, whatever dash. Here's some notes about what happened. So I think, I think people kind of have to understand how data gets digested a little bit and how you can actually utilize it. Like creating a viable data set is, you have consistency in all the columns that you're using. You're using the same formatting. So like if you have categories, you're using the same verbiage each time. So if you said like dryer, for one cat, drier than dryer issue, dryer, whatever. Like if you keep mixing it up, then you can't really slice it and dice it effectively. Mm-hmm. So I think some of it's just structuring your data in a way that's actually usable to you. It's kind of the first, like out the gate, is you just have to be able to build data sets that are actually usable. If you have that, if you have the data sets already, fantastic. Then like determining like what you want to keep track of. So I mean, I've got a bunch of stuff. Like right now, I keep track of. Initially, kept track of revenue every single day. I would do collections because I wanted to know like every day what things were, how much we were making. But then I was able to get some other analytics that allowed me to actually infer what the amount was each day based on some utility bills. And I found that was tightly correlated, and I didn't really need to keep pulling it every single day. So then I started splitting out and looking at, what is, I'm going to look at front loaders, top loaders, and dryers. I'm going to do my collections differently so I know how much I'm making from all those different ones. And this is for a coin based. If you're card based, awesome, you don't have to worry about this stuff.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, so then I have, I through the electric company, I can pull in how much electricity I use, what was the temperature that day, or the high temperature and the low temperature, which in Phoenix actually really has a big impact on, how many people show up to your laundromat when it's 110 degrees versus when it's 70 degrees. That stuff actually impacts you. So I have this huge data set that I use, and I take in like how many impressions I had in Google, how many clicks I had in Google that day, how much I spent in Google Analytics. And so this is all formatted on, date by day or day by day. I've got just this massive data set that I'm collecting that I can go in there and I can kind of play around with and see what is actually moving the needle. Is this stuff actually, does, paying money to Google, does that have any impact? And you've talked about A/B testing in the past, like doing stuff like that with your advertising. Mm-hmm. So once you have that data set, then, being able to do some basic things in Excel are really important. So if you don't know how to use pivot tables, go online. There's so many resources for using pivot tables, and that allows you to, I just have, my data set and then another slide or another sheet with a bunch of pivot tables where I just have like a dashboard where I can see all the different metrics for my business, how much I'm making average per day, how much I'm making week over week, how much I'm, the sum per week, the average per week, the whatever. I just have everything quickly broken down. So all I have to do is input that data and everything automatically gets generated to those. And
can you explain real quick what a pivot table is?
Yeah, a pivot table is basically you have rows and columns. So like, let's say I want to say my row is day of the week. So I have Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So you're going to see that on the left-hand side. And then up above, I would just want to say, what do I want to look at? Well, I want to look at average revenue per day. So what it's going to do is it's going to look through my whole data set. It's going to average out for every Sunday, every Monday, every Tuesday, every Wednesday, et cetera, how much was generated that day. And then it's going to basically create a grid for me where I can look and see how much, how much I average each day. And so pivot tables take a little bit to master. I think they take a second to learn. But what they allow you to do is to really slice and dice data in an effective manner, and gain a lot of insights very quickly without a lot of work. So they do the heavy lifting of the analytics for you. I'm sure there's some people on YouTube that can explain them much better than I can.
I'll include a link on the show notes, or for you on YouTube, it's down in the description. I'll include a link to a tutorial that'll help you grasp pivot tables and show you how to make them. So
yeah.